There we go.
Nice. Did it
Awesome.
again. We're getting good at this. Yeah, so we're finally figuring this stuff out, which is good.
Awesome.
But
All right. So, I am having Nick come on here. Nick is a physical therapist. He works out of Pompton Plains in New Jersey, and he is really awesome, really knowledgeable. And I want him to come on here and talk about warm-ups and how to do it appropriately and what that looks like, because I commonly get this question from clients.
yeah, it's true. So Amanda texts me every so often, hey, what should you do for this?
Great resource.
Yeah. So warm-ups are this big like everyone's heard the word of warm-ups. We've all done it since we were in high school. If you played any type of athletic thing in high school, or you've heard the term warm-up. And a lot of what I want to just discuss is like, there's no definite number one warm-up that's like better than all the rest, you know? And I think that can be hard because there's so much information. Oh, try this warm-up, try this warm-up, do this, do that. And realistically, what a warm-up comes down to is it's priming your body and your tissues, like the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons, to be prepared for the movement that you're going to do, you know? So like...
So what's the benefit of that?
So because it's almost like you don't want to go from 0 to 100 miles per hour in your car as fast as possible, or else the car will redline, and you may... the transmission and the engine may drop out. It's kind of like that with your body. You don't want to go from being let's say you sat all day at work or whatever it was, and you get to the gym and your workout happens to just be a really intense one for that day. And you go from sitting all day to not prepping your body to be prepared for that workout. You're going to feel, there's a good chance you're going to feel something.
Right.
Now, you don't have to do like a 4-hour long workout like some people, warm up, like some people say, and this has happened where people have told me like, oh, my warm up takes me like an hour and a half and my lift takes me like 30 minutes. I'm like, well, that's been big, like you don't want that to be the case. Yeah. Your warm up should not take longer than your workout. Let's start there. That should be point one. But your warm up needs to be something to get your body ready for what you're going to do to it. Because of the better you are prepared, it's like anything. The better you are, the more you study for a test, the better you're going to be able to take that test and do well, hopefully.
So do you think that
concept.
It can strengthen, because I know when you're going through specific exercises, you're looking to, say you're doing a deadlift, you're focused on like the glutes, the hams, the quads, like feeling the movement through those areas. Do you find that warm-ups can help with that? Yeah,
definitely. So warm-ups can definitely help with like targeting a specific area that you feel that you maybe don't have as good of a mind-muscle connection with. And if you're like, okay, listen, I know that I have deadlifts today and I always struggle with hitting them or feeling them in the right spots. So then you probably want to do things that will help feel those muscles prior to getting into it. However, you can also just deadlift to warm up, just not at what your working sets would be.
Right.
So if your sets are 100 pounds, let's say, and that's going to be the ones you're actually going to do, you can sit there and just deadlift lighter weights to warm your body up to prepare it for the heavier weight that you're going to do that day or the workout. If you're going to run, for example, you can actually just go for a run to warm up. It's just the limiting factor we all have is, and I struggle with it too, I can't pace myself slow enough to do a warm up. I will just end up going into my normal pace. And so that's where that dynamic warm up comes into play, because you're doing jumping movements, you're doing movements that will help prime the muscles, the tendons and the body to get warm for that next step of running. So that's why they do like skipping during dynamic warm-ups, hip openers, all those things. It helps warm the tissues up, warm your body, and then you can get into the next step, which would be running. But like I said, a lot of people can't pace themselves well enough to slow themselves down to actually do a good warm-up. So if you do like skipping and things like that during your dynamic warm-up, you can actually help yourself more.
So what's a dynamic warm-up, just to clarify?
So dynamic warm-up involves more like multiple planes of motion, but more so it's best to compare it to like static stretching, we'll say, or static warm-up. Like a static stretch is, you bend over, you're sitting on the floor and you touch your toes. We've all done the sit and reach test, going through presidential fitness testing and going through school. If you did not do that, lucky you, because that stunk, especially when you're not flexible. So the static stretching is like where you sit there. Most of us have, like, if we played sports, you grab your ankle, you put your like ankle to your butt, and it was like doing a quad stretch, stuff like that. Where dynamic is, it involves movement throughout, like you're walking and moving at the same time. So like skipping is a dynamic warm up, would say. Doing like,
you're taking a muscle through its motion.
yes, you're like a Frankenstein kick, like a high kick, stuff like that. That's more of a dynamic warm up because it's multiple planes of motion hitting the muscle throughout the full range of motion as best you can. And then the tissues get warm in that range. So that's what you want to do to make sure they're primed for what you're going to put them through. Right. That's the main thing, is you want to make sure you're primed for what you're going to do to it. That's just really realistically what the body should be ready for.
So when would someone benefit from static stretching?
So static stretching has its time and place. It depends when you want, what you're aiming for, and that's with any type of modality with training, is what are you trying to do? You know what I mean? So static stretching can be great after a workout if you're trying to increase range of motion. So if you're noticing that you're not getting deep enough into your squats and you feel like it's a muscle thing, and your form's good, everything looks good, maybe you need to do some static stretching. Prolonged stretching can help increase ranges of motion, and this is like dancers, gymnasts, mixed martial artists, stuff like that. They do a lot of static stretching because they need a wide range of motion to hit certain moves for them, and that's where something like that can come into play. Whereas if you don't need as much depth, we'll say, with certain things, you may not need to do as much static stretching. So it's great, and there's no one great place for it. It's not like, oh, after your workout you should do it. It depends when you need it, in my opinion. So a lot of people like to do it to cool down, though, because like one of the main things I tell people is like, don't just do your workout and get in your car and go home. If you're going to do your workout, you want to do something to cool down, and that's where static stretching can kind of help you regulate your heart rate, all that stuff, as well as the muscles are warm already. You can get some deeper range of motion. You'll feel a little bit more comfortable, and then you can get into a static stretch that way to help improve range of motion overall. And you want good range of motion. You don't want to be super stiff all the time.
Because good range of motion will help you through every lift that you do.
Yeah.
Get more out of it. Yeah.
It's true.
So would you say that it's somewhat of a myth then to avoid static stretching before working out?
Somewhat, yeah. And there's still studies on it that are coming out on static stretching versus dynamic stretching, and they find dynamic stretching is a little bit better. Okay. But there's no, like, it's not going to, the potential, like, there used to be like, oh, like, it's going to harm you.
Right.
I don't know how much that's true.
Okay.
But what I can safely say is I just think that static stretching is not equivalent to what you're going to be doing in any type of sporting or lifting event. Right. You know what I mean? It's not, there's not many sports where you're statically holding one position, like touching your toes, for example. That's not entirely true. Like you're not, what sport are you doing that for a prolonged period of time? Where that's where I think those dynamic or movements that are mimicking what you're going to do should help. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now I know we talked a little bit about ways to warm up. Like, for example, if you're going to be deadlifting that day, an really easy way to warm up is just by, using the bar or using a little bit of lighter weight, depending on how heavy you normally lift.
Yeah.
Is there a sweet spot for that?
Depends. So a lot of this all depends, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you're going to lift and working your way up to. Some people have their ways of doing things. Like they're just like, I go this way. Like I start with a 25 on each side, then I do a 45 on each side, then a 45 and a 25, then a 45 and a 40. You know what I mean? It depends on what their normal warm up looks like and they feel comfortable with. But the sweet spot should be something that fires the muscles and is taxing enough to make you feel like you're worked. If you're just flying through, then you probably are not putting enough emphasis on your workout. Now, you can do it slower too, so don't forget that aspect. Like, it's not all about weight. Tempo can kill you. In a good way. So like you can have 25
I think people
pounds.
forget about tempo. Tempo is awesome.
It's true. You can have some small weight, and if you tempo it, it can really make it feel like 100 pounds.
Right.
You know, if you have a 5-pound dumbbell and you're slowly doing lunges, man, that can add up over time if you're doing it so tempo,
Yeah.
like 5 seconds and stuff.
You're holding the
So that's the
muscle.
other factor to that. So there's really no real sweet spot. It depends on how you feel. And a lot of warming up, you have to go by how you feel. Like the whole purpose is you should be sweating, you should feel really warm. Like you'll like, I think the new things like pump covers and they come off after a while. You know what I'm saying? Like people are wearing like a hoodie. We'll say like that's I like to wear heavy clothes when I work out, and then I slowly just take layers off because I get warmer and warmer. So you should, when you're done with your warm up, you should think like, okay, like you actually should be warmed up.
Right. You should
You know what I
feel
mean?
warm. Yeah.
Yeah, you should feel warmed up. You may be sweating a little bit. You may be breathing a little bit heavy, and that's okay. And then your body's going to be primed. You're not like, I think the fear of warming up for too much comes down to, and I actually do this, I warm up too much. But that's just my personal thing that I do. And it's not good, but it does limit my ability to lift heavier weights because I warm up too much.
Okay.
But you should feel warm, and you don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to underdo it either.
Right.
There's a sweet balance in between of warm-ups where it's like, okay, well, let's say you're doing squats that day and you have 4 sets of 12. Well, you can get into it and do a lighter weight for warming up to it. You could get the bar on your back, do some squats, and it's like maybe 6 reps, 8 reps. Really focusing on tempo, hitting the depth you want to hit, hitting your form, and working through that. And then after you do a couple sets of that, you should feel pretty warmed up. Like I have my own warm-up routines that I like to do, and it's based on realistically what I'm working on that or what I'm noticing.
Right, exactly. And like that's, you know, what we've talked about so far is you know, whatever motion you're going to do, you want to replicate that. Is if someone is tight in a certain area or something hurts, or, you know, they need to work on maybe their core, right? A lot of people don't have strong inner abdominal muscles. So that's going to affect through their squats, through their deads, through everything. So would you get more specific in those scenarios?
Yeah. So that's where like I always say, like, it depends what you're working for. Like when, for example, I strained my hamstring 4 weeks ago. No, longer than that now. It's got to be 8 weeks. Whatever it was. I don't even remember. But prime example is my warm-up has changed dramatically when that happened to what it is now because I was working through something specific. Right. So when I work with patients, I'm like, what does your normal warm-up look like? And then I may be like, all right, take this part out because that's not serving what we need right now. Add this in because I don't want people to, and this happened, it's my own fault. I explained to the patient like, hey, add this in, add this in, add this in. I never told them to take out other ones. And then he came to me and he was like, hey man, my warm-ups are so long. Like, do I need to do all them? And I'm like, no. Why would you? No. And he's like, well, I was adding what you said, but I never took anything out. I was like, oh, that's my fault. I'm sorry. This is what the new thing I want you to do is take this one out and things like that. So
now,
depending what you're going through at that time really depicts what you may work on. If you're feeling great, your warm-up will be very simple. Right. You know, if you got no aches or pains or anything like that, your warm-up will look very straightforward. It will look pretty much exactly like your workout. Really should. Like let's say your workout involves it's a leg day and you're doing squats, lunges, RDLs, and step-ups. Well, good chance that your warm-ups will be some walking lunges, some body weight squats, maybe some resistance with them, not too much with that, some step-ups or step-downs, and that may be it. You know, you do a few sets of those, warm yourself up for about 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes, and then that's probably your workout. Now, if you have knee pain,
I was going to say, when I came to you with my back pain.
Exactly.
Because of my core and my glute med, right? We talked about that. So every workout I do now, I'm activating those inner abdominals first, whether it be like through pelvic tilts or heel drops, planks, and then also my glute med. So I'm doing, you know, leg abduction, lie on the floor. And then other than that, it's pretty general. But like those are my staples. Honestly, even when I do upper body days, I'll make sure to put those in just because I know it's important for my body.
Yeah. So a lot of it, and that's where it's hard when people are like, oh, do this warm out. Like I'll have people message me. I'm like, try it out. If it hit in the spot that you need, great. It could be this. Because warm outs, they get difficult in that aspect. You know what I mean? They do. But what you want to do is yeah, if you're going through something, one, you should get the exercises you need to warm you up appropriately. And like you said, like with you, with your glute meads, with your core and stuff that we worked on, we give you exercises for that, but then eventually you can take them out. And then if you want to do very basic stuff, that's fine. You know what I mean? It depends, like, depends what you need at that time. So it's really hard to say, like, there's one specific warm up. The best warm up is just making sure you're prepared to actually do what you're going to do.
And then if you're having aches or pains somewhere that are stopping you from doing
Yes.
motions, get checked out. Go to Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could do that, or message me or whatever it is. But like, if you have something going on, get it looked at. So you're doing the worst thing you want to do is waste time. That's what I
exactly, because I've done that, and that's why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen people do that. They're like, hey, I do this, 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 and this, and I've seen it on this, this, and this, and this, and it's like, okay, great. Did it help? No. Okay. So sometimes you want to get just the opinion of, and don't get me wrong, my way of doing things may be different than another PT, chiro, anyone else out there. But if your warm up is helping you and serving you the way it's supposed to, stick with it, man. You know, like do what you got to do. But if you're noticing, like, hey, man, I keep feeling this hip pain every time I squat, no matter what I do. I tried this exercise. I tried a clamshell. I tried a step down. I've tried banded mobility things. I've tried kettlebell mobility things, and nothing seems to help me. Well, then you probably need to take a deeper dive in, and you may just be not doing the right ones. Like, you may not need the banded mobility. Now, a lot of people would think that, but sometimes you don't, you know, because not all the answers are increased mobility.
Right. I know. And I feel like we tend to think that sometimes because it's been pushed. That was exactly what was happening to me, right? Like my squats, I couldn't even do my squats anymore. I couldn't load them because my lower back was bothering me. Now I'm able to load them and I'm able to go through that pattern much more efficiently, and I don't have that pain anymore. So that's also why I say that too, because if you're having anything, don't wait on it.
Yeah.
Do something about it.
You just, just get, and it's one of those things where you want to make sure that, like I said, not waste time.
Right.
Who wants to spend 3 hours warming up and then 3 hours working out?
Right.
I mean,
no one has
don't get me
time
wrong.
for that.
Yeah. If you want to and you have the ability to do that and you get paid to work out, that's phenomenal. More power to you. You get to do that. Most of us don't get paid to work out. We really don't. So the realistic thing is, if you have something going on, your warm up should be 10, 15 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah.
Make it as similar to, so like to bring it summation of the whole thing we just talked about, because we went on a bunch of tangents. So your warm up really should be similar to what you're doing. Okay. The caveat to that is, if you have something specific you're working through, ache or pain wise, then it may be different. But we'll ignore that for now.
Okay.
The general population who's working out, their warm up should be 10 to 15 minutes long, similar to what they're going to be engaging in for that workout of the day. If it's running, it can be running, but you can do skipping, lunges, plyometric type drills to warm yourself up. That's the general rule of thumb. Then if you are working through something, you may need specifics like a step down exercise to improve X, Y, and Z, overhead exercise to improve X, Y, and Z. Then it's a different story. Then you kind of want to do your own. Then it's a little bit different. But general pop, 10 to 15 minutes, very similar to what you're going to do. Don't overcomplicate things. You can easily do, like, I think that's the problem we have, is we overcomplicate our warm-ups. Like, oh, what should I do for a warm-up? And I get that question a lot. Hey, what's the best warm-up for this? You could just do that.
Not necessarily a best one. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It depends. Right.
Yeah. It really does.
It always depends.
Yeah. I mean, I did a whole reel on this, and then some of my a PT and one of my friends commented on it, was like, so in summation, it depends. And it's like, yeah.
Any great coach, physical therapist, anyone will say it depends.
Yeah.
For a lot of different questions. I do have one more question for you before we wrap this up, though, and it's about foam rolling.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on it? Do you use it before working out? Do you use it after?
So foam rolling, just like anything, I think there's a time and place. I don't think it does what people think it does. When people are like, oh, it moves the tissues, it releases this and all this stuff. I mean, the effects have been studied. Maybe you get a little bit of an increase in performance, very little
Because
beforehand.
I have seen mixed information on it.
Yeah, so and that's the fun thing about all this stuff is there's always going to be, you can find any answer you want to find. If you want to make sure that foam rolling is good, you can find all the answers about foam rolling being good. If you want to make sure it's the devil, you can find those answers too. So I personally do not foam roll unless I have a specific thing I have going on.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like if I feel like my quad is really, really tight and I know I can't get through it with stretching and static stretching, I may lay on a foam roller for sustained pressure for an X amount of time and see if that helps it.
Yeah.
So I think where foam rolling comes into play is when you've tried other movements and it doesn't seem to be helping, why not add a foam roller into it? You know? Or you can also add a foam roller into it to help just, you know, move around a little bit more. Some people foam roll and they like rock back and forth. That can help.
Right.
It's the pressure, and what it really comes down to is foam rolling brings more blood flow to that area.
Right. Which is not, a bad thing prior to the workout, right?
No, it's not a bad thing at all. It's not a bad thing after the workout. It's already going to have blood flow in that area, but it's not a bad thing at all. But what you want to think about is, do I need to add this in right now? You know, like I said, I personally only foam roll when I have some type of pain that I can't really get rid of on its own. With just regular stretching or not even stretching, with regular just movements. And it's like, okay, let me try foam rolling it. Like, oh, okay. I use foam rollers more for mobility drills than actually foam rolling themselves, even with patients.
Yeah, I've used them through like mobility exercises too.
Yeah. That's when I use them more, and that's just my personal opinion of them. Is like I said, foam rolling has a time and place. But if you're like, hey, listen, I roll my quads every time before I squat, and I get so much deeper. All right, you know what? I can't knock it. It works. That's it. Like so, like if that's part of your warm up routine and it seems to help you, and it's not any detriment, we'll say, because there is no detriment. You can't really hurt yourself with it. Then you know what?
You just want to make sure you're going over the muscle belly, right? Like you don't want to, okay.
Yeah, you don't want to be on any joint. You don't want to be on any bony landmark, because that's the hard part too. Is like, what are you foam rolling? Are you actually getting to the muscle that you're hitting? Probably not. Maybe. You know, like
right. Are you doing it correctly? Yeah.
So we foam roll, and we tend to foam roll. And like I said, if someone, and I know people that foam roll before they squat, they foam roll out and they love every second of it because it makes them feel looser. And if it makes you feel looser, that's great. And if that's what you enjoy doing instead of doing a mobility drill or a squatting drill, hey, more power to you. Right. Whatever gets you to where you need to be. So to answer that question fully is, yes, it depends, obviously. But it really does, it can, I don't think like, it's not going to make you feel that much better, if that makes sense. Like if you're doing it like, okay, preventatively, like, oh, if I foam roll after every workout, I won't get hurt.
Yeah.
Like you can still get hurt no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's like the same with static stretching, like you asked, it's a good wind down tool. You know, like you need to calm your nervous system after a workout. It's a good wind down tool of just moving around instead of just sitting in your car, getting home, and then eating a bunch of food, and then whatever you have to do for the rest of the day, catching up on whatever work it is or whatever it is. So there's no like harm, no foul, because there's like you said, there's mixed research on it. Right. Maybe you get a little uptick in performance. Maybe some people like really think that there's studies that show that sometimes it happens, but I don't think it's substantial enough to be like we all should foam roll.
Yeah, you know? No, I agree, and I'm with you. I think I really only use it when I know something's tight or something's bothering me, and I help release some of that before working out. And
same with a tennis ball.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, sometimes you feel like you got that trigger point in that area, knotty area. Let me just roll on it a little bit. If it helps loosen up some tissues, more or less get some blood flow in that area, there's nothing wrong with getting more blood flow in that area.
Yep.
Did it do much? Maybe, maybe not. But the whole purpose is it making a change for you to improve your range of motion and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So, I think that was really helpful.
I hope so.
I'll definitely post some clips from this.
Yeah, because, you know, warming up is fun. But you do need to do it.
It's important. Yeah.
It is. It's just, you got to get the body warm. You just got to make sure that your body is prepared for what you're going to put it through. Don't go cold turkey into anything. And don't get me wrong. To like, if that's what you do, you can do that. It's like people do it all the time. You know, people go cold turkey into things, and that's fine. However, how long can you do that for before something catches up to you? Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, if you go cold, the real thing is if you are actually pushing yourself to the extremes that you want to, a lot of people want to push themselves, and you're going cold turkey into that, you're probably not going to feel great.
You're not going to get as much out of it, and you're more likely to get hurt. So at the end of the day, just warm up.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but like, where I'm going with that is the same concept is where if you do actually are pushing yourself to the point you want to, you should need to warm up slightly.
Right.
Or you may just have done a 45-minute long warm up, you know, because you didn't really push yourself.
Right. That's,
you know?
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
So that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
cool.
It's hard, but yeah.
Yeah.
I hope this helps.
I think so. I thought it was great.
Perfect. So thank you. We'll be back, I think, next week again.
Yeah, we'll do next Monday, 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'll come on next, and we'll talk about something different.
Yeah, something fun. So thank you, Amanda.
Cool. Thanks, Nick.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.